Today we are painting a monochrome portrait. It's part of my ongoing practice and I thought it might be nice to let you join me for the full process in real time. Painting in monochrome is one of the best ways to improve your watercolor portraits. It helps you focus on values, brushwork, and the delicate balance between control and looseness. I always recommend this to beginners and to anyone who struggles with color mixing, because once that you get comfortable painting with just one color, it is easy to slowly start adding more colors without feeling overwhelmed. So this piece did not turn out perfectly by far. I almost did not post it, but after reading your encouraging comments in the community section, I decided to finish it to my liking. So as part of this session, I will also talk about what I think did not work so well. And as you paint along, I hope that you'll discover your own insights too. If you find this approach helpful and want to practice more, I have created a 7-day monochrome portrait challenge. Over the course of 7 days, we'll paint portraits in different colors, exploring a variety of faces and angles. You can follow the challenge on your own using this video as a guide, or you can join me on Skillshare or Patreon. I'll be posting daily demos starting Monday, November 3rd. More details about that at the end of this video. In today's video, I want to do a monochrome painting. This will be the photo reference. I probably want to do something in pink color or pinkish. For that, I have my sketchbook here, and I will have to figure out which color do I want to use. When I'm choosing a color for monochrome painting, I always look for something that can be dark and can be light. So with reds, we're pretty limited because reds are relatively light colors. I think that from my collection of paint that I have in the studio, we could try to use this Rembrandt color. This is Permanent Matter Purple. I like that it could do near black. Probably it can. I will only use the porcelain palette. This is a plate, regular porcelain plate. I don't eat from it, I just use it when I have a specific limited color palette so that the colors don't mix with my usual palette. Let's see if this color can work for this painting. So when the pigment is thick, I need strong dark. It's not gonna be 100%. And then when we add water, then it should get lighter and lighter. It will be an interesting painting. One thing that I want to try is with my calligraphy brush to take some of the thicker pigment and do some strokes like this. And yeah, that can be... here the strokes show up pretty dark, so I think this paint could work for a monochromatic painting that is red or pinkish. For this demo, I'll be using 2 round brushes. This is Winsor & Newton Series 7. This is a sable brush and 1 small brush. This is same but a lower level sable bristles in this brush. This is Lineal number 4. I will list these for you in the description of this video. But then I have a very cheap calligraphy brush. This one can do dry brush and can do, I will mostly use it for the hair, brows, maybe eyelashes. And for some expressive brushwork, I have this professional watercolor synthetic sable brush from Winsor & Newton. By the way, you can absolutely join me for this painting process. You will need a sketch. I have already created mine. It is from my previous YouTube video, in case that you are not a regular subscriber and missed it. This demo was on how to draw portraits accurately from a reference photo, which I have linked down below, so you can prepare the sketch using that video. You can also find the reference photo and my materials list in a public post on my Patreon if you'd like to use the same setup as me. For my monochrome painting, I often convert my reference photos into black and white, though in this case it happened completely by accident. My printer ran out of ink and gave me this beautiful pink photo, which I actually ended up loving. We are going to be starting now. When I paint, I always create a tilt. That means that I put a basket or something underneath this pad Before I start painting, I always check the reference photo and I try to figure out where there are lighter parts of the portrait. Light is everything that's completely white, but also this color, the color of the skin is light. Areas that are completely white, we do not paint over them. I mark that lightness and I remember then to paint around it. Here in the corner of this eye also, here there is light. And here there's light. Where else? Here maybe we should avoid. On the nose we already have that marked from the the drawing part of this demo. Lighter part also is here on the chin. I think that's that. So now we know what's light. Skin is also quite light. And then here these parts, they are very dark. And everything in between the lights and darks will be mid-tone. Most of her hair is mid-tone. This photo is really great for this example because here you have it separated for you very nicely. This is light, this is mid-tone, and this is dark. So those are the three value groups that we have to notice. We have to observe the reference photo to make sure that we know where they are so that we know where to place the paint. And watercolor usually is painted from the light to dark. And so my first layer will be mostly the lighter parts. So what we do is to do a pool with water and paint like this. More water, we need the paint to be diluted. I always have tissues in my hand just in case that something goes where it's not supposed to. And then we can start applying this tone value from the top of the skin. You paint around the highlights. This should not be so difficult. But I make sure that this wash is very watery. And it looks incredibly dark, but I already know how watercolor can fade away. So I'm not really buying this, that it will be dark. I know that usually I have problem and I have to add some paint. But there's another thing that we have to do, and that's to go back while the wash is still wet, and with just clean water on your brush, we have to do this for the highlights. We kind of have to connect the entire wash with clean water so that we have a spot that's lighter in that area, but don't have a sharp edge. Okay, here also we can do slightly lighter. So I'm doing slightly more water there in that area. Here also more water here. Sorry about the teeth. They kind of have to be, you have to paint over them because they are not white at all on the reference photo. And then down here we're going to again start adding some pigment here on this side, a bit more pigment. A bit more. Clean water, and here I already, this can run a bit more crazy. I also want to do the iris, but I have to be careful because there are white spots in the eye as well. So I do not want to cover that. a bit clean water in it. Okay. Yeah, I know that the face is painted and I do not wait for it to dry, but I will now want to paint some loose strokes for the background and add the hair, everything at once. So I'm going to grab this brush, this large brush, and we'll do some splatter, some expressions. Maybe a bit more pigment here, more pigment here, and just let it move on its own. It will be like a Halloween portrait. But I also want to add the hair, and so I'm using the calligraphy brush that I showed you earlier, and I just want to give some base to the hair so that the area does not stay too white. I have to do a tilt again. If I don't, then here I will have problems. Now here, to this part, I'm already starting to add a little bit of real dark pigment. Here I have to be careful because this is still wet, so it will run. I don't want that. But here the face is dry, and so I can go a bit closer. So looking back at this process, I realized that if I wanted a more controlled, smoother look on the face with fewer blooms, I should have dried it before moving on to the background and hair. I sometimes do that as part of my process, but not this time. And the blooms quickly got out of control, so that's a small tip from the smarter version of me now editing this video. My one rule is not to fix these things now when everything is wet, because that usually makes more mess. I can fix them later when it's dry and I have more control. Okay, I think that's okay for the first layer. I will now let this dry, but first I get rid of all of this excess water. When this dries a little bit, I will do some sprinkles of clean water. I'm going in with clean water now. Cool. This I sort of try not to get in the face, and do this. And on the other side as well. So I want these sparkles a little bit. This paper, Winsor & Newton, he's great because he's a bit harder to control, but these effects, they turn out beautifully. And also color really shines on this paper compared to some other papers that are easier to control maybe, but the color sinks in a bit too deep into the paper. It does not show as well as on this one. So, now that the first layer dried, we can continue with the painting, and I would want to do some shading in the face, but maybe before I start doing that, I will want to clean up this layer a little bit with my softer brush and with just clean water on the brush. I want to maybe try to rub it here so that I clean up this part, to make it a bit slightly less dark in here. I will try with stiffer brush. And it won't be possible to do it more. I really struggled to lift the pigment here. Normally, lifting is a great way to correct smaller areas in the watercolor painting, especially if you're working on a good quality cotton paper, but this particular pigment is quite staining, so it just won't budge. I ended up second guessing my first layer and trying too hard to fix it, which completely overworked the neck area. Sometimes it's better to just leave the mistakes as they are. A few uneven spots are never as distracting as smudged, overworked layers of paint. Now we can start adding. Sometimes the paper lets go a bit more of the pigment. Today this is what we can do. This part won't be any lighter, but it does not have to be a problem. It just can be a part of the stylization. Add a bit more color to my palette. Make a little bit more of a mixture that is more mid-tone. Darker mixture, something like this. And I will start with shading larger areas here on the neck. And clean water. I will first maybe want to dampen the entire face for this technique. So I will dampen it slightly. That will help me paint larger shadows with a bit more precision. Now we'll be adding color into this wet wash, like here. And I can push the paint back and forth. I can create a gradient where I need to. So what I see on the reference photo is a little bit more of a mid-tone in this area where the cheek is. And then maybe slightly bit more pigment in this part here. And this part, this entire part will be more in shadow, but I have to beware this. I have to create a gradient. So here we should do a bit more. Here I need to add a bit more. And here. Underneath the eyes, slightly more pigment. Here a bit more. Underneath the brows will be more pigment. In this part also a bit more pigment, like that. bit more pigment here. Like these larger shadows, oftentimes it's better to do when you pre-dampen that paper, because then you can better control how it spreads. This part here I have to also wet. At this stage I have to dry again. So I noticed that I have some like expressive textures here. For now that's not bugging me all that much, and I want to continue doing some details, then we will tie it together. For that I will use the smaller round brush that I have here. So I will start shading around the eyes, nose and lips. Here as well. I will try to do subtle shading below the eye. Now this starts to look a bit strange. Here a bit more. And I just do these little tweaks where I notice on the reference photo there's a shadow somewhere. I'll try to add more color and tweak according to what I see on the reference. Here we also, towards the nose, we have to add a bit more color. And a bit more here too. I have some more depth now in the eyes and nose. We'll probably tweak some more, but let's do the lips. For lips, I have to add the darkest pigments in the corners of the mouth here. Just like when we were drawing the portrait, we were focused on these spots. We also have to paint like that. So these are the parts that are like the darkest here. Then continuing with color, adding color that's slightly lighter here in these parts. Maybe like that. And a bit here. And the rest of the upper lip will be just clean water pulling the pigment. Basically, like that. So that you get this effect that looks like it's more 3D. And here, darker is the bottom part of the mouth, like that. And here, slightly more color. And we also have to do something with the ear, though not a lot. You don't have to do too many details, but just where you see a bit more value, then you place it there so that it looks like an actual ear. And here, okay. And I'll try to add the pupils and try to do the brows here with some texture. It's really easy to do with calligraphy brush because it's so sturdy and the bristles, they can hold apart like this. It can create a very natural effect without you having to draw every single hair. So like always, my painting turned out very different from the photo. I just want to make the painting look fine on its own right now at this stage. And for that, I will still have to work some details and maybe fix some of these things. We'll see if I can fix these blooms. And I usually try to do that with very soft brush, damp brush. Maybe add a little bit more of that shadow here and try to see if I can create a gradient that's that is nicer than the bloom. Maybe a little bit, maybe it covered just a tiny bit. I'll try to go and lighten this part around the eyes by removing pigment. Now this part around the neck, like the neck turned out not so great, to be frank. I'll try to make it a bit straighter here. Is that better? Maybe. And when painting darks, I really need a lot of pigment because this is not... The darks are hard to get with this color, but it's still the strongest of all the reds that I could have possibly tried for this particular technique. So here, and now how do I want this to work? I want a bit more darks here. Maybe here. I want darks behind the hair strings. So this is just like a stylist choice. This is just stylization, not something that you can find on the reference. There is no background on the reference. And for some of these hair strands, I will need this brush. Drying again everything. At this stage, I took a small break from this painting because I was not sure if I want to continue. I was not convinced that the painting will turn out well. Looking back after a couple of days, I think it's worth finishing. So what the painting is missing now is a few more details that I'm still not satisfied with, especially around the eyes and a little bit around the nose. And then I will try to show you one more effect that you can use, because what I don't like is how I overwork these parts. I think the sparkly effect that we had after first layer was beautiful and I covered this unnecessarily. So we'll have to find another way to make that part look a bit nicer. I have some fresh paint here. Few of the lashes that I think that the portrait will need. I will have to draw these with a tip of the smaller brush. And maybe emphasize on this part a bit more. Here around the nose, there's just a few areas that I don't feel like have enough depth, but painting this piece definitely made me notice that I should do more studies of the individual facial parts and features, particularly focused around shading and how to convey the form. And if you want to join me for that, let me know, because maybe first I will do something for my patrons, and then later we can do the same here on YouTube, because that's just so necessary. If you feel like you're struggling with a particular feature when painting portraits, maybe it's time to step back and do some studies, which is what I'm feeling right now. I need to emphasize these parts a bit more. Here, add some shading, but these are, at this point, is just tweaks, not too much change from what we already created here. I would also want to do a film around the teeth, very slight, and maybe do some like light shading around the teeth so that we see a bit more form. Although this is like in a very small area, so there's not that much space to maneuver. But I don't think they are as wide. I felt like they need a bit more shadow. And then there's this area that kind of bugs me a little bit. This one here. Because the ear usually is a bit lighter. It stands out from the face, so here we have to have shadow. Also this part, like I know I was trying to fix that neck, but this edge is just way too sharp. Now we are already sort of overworking. I have been overworking this painting for some time. I'm well aware when you get to this stage and you realize this, you can throw the painting or try to finish it. I think if I threw away all of the pieces that I overworked, then I might be left with just a couple of pieces in my studios. I think we're done with the details. I do not want any more details in the piece. But I want to try one effect. I will try to use the sprinkler and just spray from a distance clean water to a dry paint. And on the other side as well. So maybe now you can see these droplets. And what I want to do is get a clean tissue and do this. Get them out. Get the pigment out. And that helps. I don't know if you can see, but there's slight change in the texture here. In this area and here as well. I have to do it a couple of times. Maybe wait for a moment and then do this. Yeah, this is nice. This is nicer than a clean wash of darker paint. Maybe here, below the face as well. It doesn't always work with every pigment and with every paper. Some papers let go a bit more easily. Winsor & Newton paper usually lets go of the pigment, but then this particular red pigment is quite staining, so the pigment itself is harder to get off of the paper. Nevertheless, I think I succeeded to get this texture. And while we could cool it down at this point, we could also try to experiment a bit further. Maybe you've seen me in some of the recent videos use a white pencil. I want to try that again. So I have this pencil, these are Caran d'Ache Luminance pencils, and I use blank white. This is quite opaque colored pencil, which is why I chose that one. You can do with all kinds of opaque whites. These effects you can do with gouache, with inks. This painting was a fun experiment, which is why I just want to see where I can push it. I might repaint in the future. Maybe I want to emphasize the white of the... add a subtle white to the eyes. Emphasize the reflected light here, and maybe a bit more here. And slightly more here. Here I covered the white. And yeah, well, here. It can help you correct stuff that you messed up with. Of course, that the main goal is not to rely on this anymore and do like pure watercolor, but like why not do it for practice? And I want to do here. Maybe I want to use scalpel a little bit. With scalpel, I usually do these hair strings. And I just use it like a pencil. I just draw with it to remove some of the pigment and create a few floating hairs. And lastly, maybe I will return to the pencil and do like heavier stylization. And that will kind of give it a bit more graphic look. I like this. The combination of drawing and painting. Here, I don't like this line. But that's the beauty of a pencil, because you should be able to just erase and rework. That's better. So here's the final piece. Hope you like it. Hope that you learned more than just how to overwork a painting from this session. If you'd like to keep practicing, I would love it if you join my 7-day monochrome portrait challenge. You can take on the challenge on your own, you can choose your own references and use the techniques from this video to guide your process. Or if you'd like more structure and feedback, you can join me on either Skillshare or Patreon. Skillshare offers a free 1-month trial, so if you join through the link in the description, you can take the whole challenge for free. And if you decide to join via Patreon, That's a monthly or yearly membership. You will get access to more than 150 real-time painting and drawing lessons like this one from me to help you grow your skills. Both platforms let you share your work with me and other artists, which makes the experience much more motivating. There will be more challenges coming after this one, so make sure that you complete it before we move on to portraits in color. And as always, I would love to hear your feedback. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this painting and subscribe for more watercolor portrait sessions like this one. Thank you for watching and happy painting!